evening, everyone, and welcome again to another episode of In The Biz, where we talk about your bizcarte in business. This is In The Biz. All right, and this is where, again, we really talk about yung mga bizcarte stories of our successful business owners, business leaders, and different entrepreneurs to really see what it takes to be successful in business. So thank you so much everyone for joining us. We have here si Christina Annette Cirque says, good evening, Konbanwa. Konbanwa, thank you for joining us. Sino pa kasama na dito? Andito si Brother Randel, si I Am Randel is here. Also Austin 08, Miko Emmanuel, Uncaptured, Myrelli also is also here. Papa Change Oil also joined. Thank you so much for joining us again here on In The Biz. So guys, for those that have been joining us in the past few weeks, no, we've been on Wednesday nights, but now we're back to our original schedule. That's Tuesdays 8 p.m. So balik tayo sa dating gawi, where it's always Tuesday nights where we have In The Biz, where we talk about yung mga bizkarte stories of our successful business owners, business leaders, and entrepreneurs. Makita natin din mga kwento nila and facing all the different challenges in starting and running a business. Especially very interesting now, no, we're seeing a turn of the tide, no, nagpapalit na rin in terms of the market landscape, di ba? I mean, we've gone through a whole year already, more than a year of quarantine, and now things are starting to get better as more and more people are getting vaccinated. Now, what is the pulse of the market and where is business going? We'll be hearing more about that from our different business owners and business leaders. But for tonight, our guest, ang ating bisita, will also really tell us about yung journey nila, no, in how business has more than a greater purpose, can have a really greater purpose, more than just about making money, being sustainable, but can have a much deeply rooted purpose, now that can really go beyond ourselves, beyond the business, and really transcend everyone involved in the business, because there is always something that can go deeper, and that is the why. Why does the business exist? And that is why tonight we'll be really talking about God first, biz second. So kayo, usapang bizkarte, when you think about your own bizkarte for your own business or your dream business, or even in your career, what comes first, diba? And ano yung bizkarte mo in pursuing what comes first. So again, welcome here mga kabizkarte. Welcome and thank you for joining us tonight for episode 10. This is our 10th. Can you believe it, guys? 10th episode na natin ito. We've been over 2 months already. How time flies, diba? And thank you so much again for joining us weekly. Now we're on our 10th week. So thanks so much for joining us tonight here. Andito si I Am Randel. Woohoo! Sabi ni Papa Change Oil. Yay! Si Kirk, of course, is here. Si Princess Dizon also joined us. Si Gail Sia also joined us. It's K Without Y. Hey, it's K Without Y. Nandito siya ulit. Si Call Me Benj also joined us. Also Jamie, Annie. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. Again, this is In The Biz, where we talk about your bizkarte stories. We also talk about yung mga bizkarte stories of our bizitas who are successful business owners, business leaders, and entrepreneurs, to share about their journey in building and growing their business. So thank you so much for joining us. Again, I'm Raphael Layosa, founder and CEO of Retail Gate Technologies, and your host for this show, which we call In The Biz, talking about bizkarte stories of our successful business owners and business leaders. So are you guys ready to meet our guest tonight? I mean, guys, I tell you, ang ganda na story ng bisita natin tonight. I mean, his business alone is actually a testimony to how business can really go beyond the traditional purpose of just making money. There's always that deeper purpose, a higher calling in terms of business. That is definitely possible, and that also guides every decision. For any business leader, business owner, nandyan lagi, what is our why? What is our purpose? Why are we doing this in the first place? And for this guy sa ating bisita, it's really about more than just making money, but honoring God. That's why ang topic natin tonight is really God first, biz second. Alright, so kilalanin na natin siya, ang ating bisita tonight for episode 10 of In The Biz. at alamin natin ang kanyang bizkarte. Let's all welcome the founder and owner of Worship Generation, Kirk Damasco. Hi, Kirk!
Hello, Raph. Hello, everyone.
Hey, Kirk. Oh, thank
Salamat,
you so
salamat sa
much.
pag-imbita.
Nako, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, that's a beautiful backdrop you've got right over there. You're calling from all the way from Iloilo, right?
From Iloilo. So if one of your viewers said Kumbamwa, I will greet you maayong gabi sa inyo tanan.
Oh, maayong gabi. Thank you for joining us all the way from Iloilo. I mean, yun, Hoy, thank you. It's K without Y sent Kumu. Welcome. Welcome to Kumu, Kirk. No? I mean,
Oy,
let's get
thank you.
right to it. No? Thank you for
Hey.
joining us. Di ba? And we want to hear that. I mean, that's such
Mm,
a great purpose. And I love that your shirt agad, no? Kita-kita. Dakila
mhm.
ang Diyos. And it really speaks of how great our God really is. Would you tell us more about that? No, your story in what the very purpose. I mean, nandun na agad yung pangalan ng Worship Generation. What's it all about? Where did it start for you guys in your business?
Well, siguro, Worship Gen as a business and as a brand, what it seeks to do is to make worship a lifestyle. That is our tagline. But it's more than just the tagline. It really is the reason why the business is there. We want to make space for faith in the real world, and we want to provide people means by which they can express that faith. That's why our products are things and items that people wear and use every day. Now, Worship Generation was started by me and my friend 2013. If you want to look at our beginnings actually happened when we were still junior students in college. And that was 2007, 2008. It
Mm-mm.
was during that time when my business partner and I started our first ever t-shirt brand for our school. It's called Get Blued. So we devoted our energies and our time in doing shirt business for the school, for the UAAP, for all of these school events. And that was fun because we've been winning championships in the UAAP. Now, 2013 happened when we started losing the championship. LaSalle won, and the family
Animo Lasal.
business of my yeah, yeah. The family business kasi of my business partner is House of Praise. It used to be
Yes.
a chain of Christian bookstores selling
Mm-mm.
CDs, DVDs at the time when uso pa yung mga yun. Pero
Mm-mm.
sabi nila sa amin, they called us for a meeting and they asked us, "Hey, you've been doing shirts since 2008. How does the
Mm-mm.
idea sound na, oh sige, you develop and create an apparel line that will be faith themed, Christian themed?" So
Mm-mm.
kami, the idea sound really exciting to us. And from a business standpoint, it really does make sense. Na
Mm-mm.
you've been printing shirts about Ateneo, about school spirit. Now, you're gonna be printing shirts about the Holy Spirit. Kasi
Yeah,
religious shirts na
that is
siya.
beautiful. Oh.
Pero I think the challenge doon for at least for me personally is I had to look inside and dig deep and answer the question, yung message ba ng worship generation, is it something that I am willing and able to live out? Kasi
Mm.
parang if I look back, the reason why Get Blued was and still is doing well now is because we are really fans of the team and of the school. And for us to be successful with worship generation, we must be sold to the message. And
Mm-mm.
sabi ko parang nagbebenta ako ng Team Jesus shirts. Tapos medyo yung buhay ko kahit papaano wala man lang attempt to live up to that. I'm not saying na perfect, but at least
Mm-mm.
you have the
Yeah.
willingness to do it. And I had to
Mm.
talk to friends who could give me spiritual counsel, who could give me practical business advice. So that was how everything started sa worship generation.
I mean, that is a very, very beautiful story. How it evolved from being that the first business that you had, yung Get
Mm-hmm.
Blued. It's for the fans of a team
Yes.
of Ateneo. No,
Mhm.
and then now it shifted to, especially now, the team, essentially a team, like you said, Team Jesus, yung mga fans
Mhm.
naman ni Jesus. I mean, I love that. That's very powerful. Now, I just want to backtrack on what you said. No, it's about
Mhm.
making worship a lifestyle, and I love what you mentioned. As the owner of the of worship generation, it's also something that you got to live and breathe yourself. Ano? Now, in terms of how do you really define that? What does it mean to make worship a lifestyle, and how did you see that as a need in the market? Nako,
I
ay nako,
explained make worship
nalaglag.
a lifestyle.
Ayun, there.
Ayun, ayun,
Oo.
ayun. Pwede,
Tinetest tayo ng
pumasok ba?
kalaban.
Ayun. So
Nawala ka
ako,
na bit eh.
ako I explain making worship a lifestyle by dividing the words, no? I think
Mhm,
when we say make, it connotes something which is intentional. It is really our plan. It is really
mhm,
our objective. Parang hindi siya yung, sige, print ka na lang ng may Jesus dyan, okay na. And then the second
mhm.
word is worship.
Yes.
Worship is defined so many ways, but I would just define it as our response to the best news ever. And the best news ever is God loves you, God will redeem you, God will save you and give you a full life. And
Mhm.
then
Yes.
lifestyle means it's just part of our day-to-day life. Parang hindi siya 1 day of 7 days, out of 7 days. Hindi siya 1 hour out of the
Mhm,
24 hours. So, make worship a lifestyle essentially means we make our response to the best news ever part of our day-to-day lives. So, of course, it is not limited to the shirts, to the ballers, to the stickers. It has
mhm,
to be our lives. Pero, the concept of overflowing, kumbaga kung punong-puno ka nun, lalabas at lalabas yun eh. Either in words, in your status messages, in your parang biroan, and at the most basic, in the things that you wear and use.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, I love that what you mentioned. It's making worship part of our daily lives. I mean, the parallelism. I really love the parallelism with Get Blued and worship generation, wherein meron ka nun, it started with school pride, but now
Mhm.
it's more of having that pride of being a follower of Christ, right? And
Yes.
and in doing that, how do you see that, being translated with all your customers, 'di ba? How is that being translated in them living that out as with worship being a lifestyle and transcending just transcending the what you said, it doesn't end up at with the shirts or the ballers or the accessories, right? How do you see that happening now? What's that impact of your brand in the lives of your customers?
Well, I'll start with our people, no? And I always say, na let us disabuse the notion that our shirts would change people's lives. It won't.
Mm-mm.
Kahit
Yeah.
na tuloy-tunuladang t-shirt pa yung ilaga mo dyan at ipainom mo yung dagta sa isang tao. I mean, your life won't be changed by the shirts. I mean, the
Jesus will change
shirts,
the lives.
di ba? It's the
Mm-mm.
shirts and our products are just media. It's a medium to
Mm-mm.
convey
Yeah.
the message of Christianity, of our faith. As regards to how it impacts people's lives, well, it serves as a reminder for many. I mean, walking in the mall and you see someone wearing a shirt that says God's
Mm-mm.
timing is perfect, and then okay,
Yes.
I need not be so distraught because God's timing is perfect. It also
Mm-mm.
serves as a evangelistic tool. I'm sorry for the technical term, but I mean it's a way to share the faith without being too intrusive.
Mm-mm. Yes. Oo.
Kasi it's a good conversation starter na parang, oy, nice, he is risen. Sino risen?
Oo.
Oy, di ba? Parang, I can sing of your love forever. Who's love? And may forever ba talaga? We even have shirts that have definitions. So, kung ayaw mo magsalita, magbasa ka na lang.
Mm-mm. Yes. I
And
mean,
of course,
yeah.
di ba?
Sorry, you were saying?
Yeah. And of course, parang the brand kasi comes alive. Not sa products lang. but sa mga tao namin, the people who face customers in the malls,
Oh.
the people who answer our social media. So really the challenge is to alam ba yun, maramdaman yung a different kind of service, a different kind of offering, and it should translate to how we conduct business. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. Na it's the business in itself is an exercise of discipleship, ano? And
Yeah.
you mentioned, I love that it actually starts with the people, with your own frontliners that are
Mhm.
facing customers, right? How exactly is that experience? No, I mean, if our viewers here walk right into a worship generation store, what experience can they expect?
Well, it the ideal that we strive for is that our stores and our people will be source of life-giving energy. Yung parang
Mm-mm.
it's light, it's joyful, it's happy, it's encouraging. At times it's prayerful because we have had stores na stop lang siya nung pandemic that we were
Mm-mm.
giving people sheets of paper to write their prayer requests.
Oh wow,
So
yeah.
something like that. And then there are times when people looking for small groups would inform our stores that I'm looking for a small group. So we would connect them to
Mm-mm.
a local church. I mean, things like those. It was just heavily disrupted during the pandemic. But
Yeah.
with things becoming a little bit more normal or back to how it was, we hope to resume all of these things once again.
Now, just touching a bit on that note, right? You mentioned the disrupt ng pandemic, no?
Mm.
Clearly, we're seeing you're still standing. The worship generation brand has survived the pandemic. What's the story there? How did you go through that storm? And we've all gone through this storm for over a year now. But
Mhm.
in your story, ano yung biskarte nyo nun? Na you faced all that and still honored God through it all.
Well, of course, we had to take the practical steps, no, of unfortunately closing some stores,
Mm-mm.
unfortunately letting some people go. Actually, hindi lang some, ang dami. That had to be a practical business decision that we had to make. Pero parang
Mm-mm.
nung start pa lang ng pandemic, we had to meet everybody and to say, no, that it is in times like this where worship generation is actually needed. Not the brand, but the message
Mm-mm.
that the brand carries. Of course, they can
Mm-mm.
get these messages from the church, from their small group, from their spiritual communities. But worship generation occupies kasi a unique space in the marketplace. Na
Yeah.
it's a brand in the secular marketplace that speaks about faith.
Mm-mm.
So, kumbaga parang we are occupying that space, that unique space, and we are doing that unique role of
Mm-mm.
spreading the word. So that has to be reminded to each of our people so that we would continue. So what does it mean concretely? Our social media still or all the more had content that were encouraging, that were life giving, that were value adding. We had to be responsible also in our packaging. We had to make sure that it's infected, all of those things. So the
Mm-mm.
long and short of it, going back to the mission, going back to the goal, why is worship generation there? Worship generation is there to make worship a lifestyle, not just in the pandemic, but more so in the time of a pandemic.
I love that. I mean, it's very true. No, when you honor God with what you do, He will also honor us and continue to bless us. And your story, like in everything that you did, was really about going back to that mission, honoring God,
Mhm.
in dealing with customers, dealing with your own people, taking care of them, because that in itself is an expression of worship. I really love it. That
Mhm.
is very very powerful, and I'm sure our audience, guys, do you agree? What do you think of that story? I mean, are you guys also inspired? Do you see that amazing story? Sabi dito ni It's K Without Why. I love how every single detail is well thought of, truly inspired by the Holy Spirit. Ang galing talaga. Oh, si Ramon Daval Santos is also here. My dad here. Ay, sabi niya, galing, great idea. I mean, that is really a great idea. And I love what you mentioned na you're really occupying a very unique space. And that's a very, very bold move, ano? And to really take that position of worship, honoring God, about faith in a secular market. And that's really amazing. And then there's a lot that we can learn from that, ano? And speaking of learning, that brings us to our tradition natin to dito sa In The Biz. We have our game. It's now called In The Quiz, all right? So we have some things, some trivia things to learn about the business, right? So ang ating challenge, again, as usual, sa ating mga viewers, sa ating mga bisita dito, sa ating mga kabizkarte, is to find the right answer to the following trivia question. So, let's see the first one. What is our first trivia for In The Quiz? Okay, that as many blank t-shirts are sold worldwide every year. Wow. How many t-shirts do you guys think ang nabebenta globally, worldwide, every year? Is it A, 2 billion, B, 2 million, or C, 2 trillion? Ayan, pabilisan din to ng pag-type, pag-google. Ano kaya? What is the right number here? Ano yung guesstimate ninyo? Is it 2 billion, million, or trillion? How many t-shirts are sold worldwide every year? All right. So, tingnan natin ang mga sagot dito. Sabi ni It's K without Y, it's A. Sabi ni Juan Banal, C. Sabi ni Ramon Daval Santos, C. EJ Thailand says B. Christina Anitzerk says B. Si Gets says A. Ikaw, Kirk, what do you think? Is it billion, million, or trillion? What's your guesstimate for this one?
Ako, kung wish ito ng Worship Gen t-shirt, sabihin ko ng trillion para pinakamarami.
Dapat push natin. It's about honoring God anyway, and He can do the impossible, or there's no such thing as impossible for God, right? So your answer would be trillion.
Yeah.
Tingnan natin. At may mga sumagot din. Sino yung mga sumagot na? Sabi ni Ramon Daval Santos and Juan Banal. Let's see. They're also voting for trillion. What do you guys think? Is it? Let's see now. What is the right number here? Is it billion, million, or trillion? It's billion. So 2 billion t-shirts are sold worldwide. I mean, that's a really big number. That just gives us a sheer picture already of how large the market is on a global scale, right?
Mhm.
And when we look at that, how do you see that market now? When you look at that number, Kirk, in terms of 2 billion shirts sold every year, what does that mean to you in terms of business and also in terms of your mission at Worship Generation?
Well, that essentially means the potential of the market. But it also means 2 billion instances where people wanted to express themselves. And
Oh,
your expression is you can express many things, your mood, your emotion, your favorite K-drama, your preferences. And imagine if the 2 billion is counted as an expression or moments of expression of your Christian faith.
that is just powerful. I mean, 2 billion out of how many billion is the population of the globe? I haven't checked the numbers again, but that is amazing. Just imagining that 2 billion, if that can all be shirts expressing our faith, that is really powerful, no?
Yeah.
I mean, and I love what you mentioned, no, that the T-shirt is about expression. Where did you draw that from, no? Na typically when we think of t-shirts, people can easily dismiss that as just a piece of clothing to cover ourselves and whatnot. But I love what you
Mhm.
mentioned. It's about expressing. No, where did you draw that from?
Well, I guess it's from the day to day experience that, whether consciously or unconsciously, everything is a form of communication. I mean, the
Mm-mm.
background that you use, the glasses that you use, the color of whatever. So everything is an expression of something, is a form of communication. Now, what is expressed depends on what is most intense in your life. Now,
Mm-mm.
I mean, 'di ba? So parang, ganun yun, na parang ako, I chose to wear the shirt today because I believe in what it's saying and because you asked me to be a guest and talk about worship gen. So parang I better wear worship gen in such an
Yes,
occasion as
definitely.
this. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yun talaga, it's a way to express not just who we are, or but more so what we believe in, and a message that we want to deliver to everyone. I mean, I love that concept of expression from our clothing, because with that, no, as with our shirts, with worship being a lifestyle through what we wear, every every soul that we get to walk across can be a soul that is touched by that message of salvation, that message
Mhm.
of the good news of God's free gift of salvation through
Mhm.
Jesus. And I
And
really love that.
we are told that we are indeed ambassadors for Christ. And
That
our
is
ambassadorship is not just words, but also our life and our clothing is part of that.
That is real true. I mean, grabe. I mean, that alone, we've learned so much already. Let's see what's the next one. Our next entry, our next trivia for In the Quiz. All right. So dito it says, the oldest textile printing method dates back to 3rd century China. And it
Hmm.
was A, wood block printing, B, stamp printing, or C, screen printing. I'm curious, ano yung mga differences ng mga have you used these different methods or styles of printing in business, or have you just focused on one of these three or none of these three kasi mas modern na yung approach natin today?
Mostly we're using letter C, silk screen printing.
Letter C, screen printing.
Yeah.
Uh, was that, is that the one, ano, sorry, parang I can't even remember when was the last time we had an activity back in, I think, grade school pa yata or high school, yung t-shirt printing. Ito ba yung screen printing? Yung you have a squeegee and you have the textile paint, yun ba yun? Or is it something else pa?
Yes, yes, yes. No, no, no.
Okay, very,
Maybe you kasi it could also be the transfer it, the stamp printing. The silk screen is
ah,
yung may hinahagod ka.
yung may hinahagot na may squeegee, tas you just
Yun,
push
yun.
it like that,
Yes,
ganun.
yes.
Yun
That's
yung
right,
screen
that's right.
printing. I
Yeah, yeah.
see, I see. Alright, so tingnan natin, ano yung mga sagot? Again, guys, do you think itong dating back to 3rd century China, the oldest textile printing method, is it A, woodblock printing, B, stamp printing, or C, screen printing? Sabi ni It's K without Y, B? Sabi ni Gets, A. Pedestrian says A. Ramon Duval Santos says A. All right. Uy, si Eileen, Eileen Mortiferro sent a halo-halo. Thanks so much for that, Eileen. So, tingnan natin. Sino pa? Wala na ibang mag-guess. Mga history nerds natin dyan. What do you guys think? Is it A, woodblock, B, stamp, or C, screen? Si EJ Thailand sent a Carlito clap. Thanks for that, EJ. Thank you. All right. So, let's see. What is the answer? Or sabi ni HK without Y. Dahon print. Ako, mukhang prehistoric na talaga yun na. Pre-recorded history na yan. Baka tayo pa ni na Adam and Eve na yan, yung dahon print na yan. So, what is the answer? What is the oldest textile printing method? Tingnan natin. It's wood block printing. I'm not really familiar with this. Clearly, it's a very old one, diba? It's the oldest, in fact. Are you familiar with that? What's this method, Kirk? And have you tried it? What's it like?
Well, I don't exactly know, but if I were to guess, parang may mga siguro, patterns made of wood. And then,
Ah,
yun yung ipapamark sa
parang
textile.
ine-emboss sa textile through
Yes.
wood. Wow, okay. May ibang klase yun. Tingnan natin naman, what's the third one? Okay, third, ano natin, trivia for In the Quiz. Anito, it says, the second most popular fabric for a t-shirt is blank after cotton. Is it A, denim, B, polyester, or C, velvet? All right, so fabric for a t-shirt. Imagine, is it denim? Could it be denim? Parang ang init nun. I can't imagine.
Parang kapal-kapal.
For ang kapal-kapal nun, for sure. If that's the answer, definitely not here in the Philippines. I mean, baka himatay yung ano, suot niyan. Kung t-shirt pa lang, denim na. But that's a very curious and new style. I wonder kung mauuso yun ever anywhere as a t-shirt, ano? What do you guys think? Is it denim, polyester, or velvet? All right, let's see the answers. Sabi ni, it's K without Y. B. Haruaki says
Mhm.
B. Papa Change Oil says B. Hestia says B. EJ Thailand says B. Pedestrian says A. Wow. Pedestrian says denim. Talagang naniniwala siya sa denim kahit mainit. Go lang. Roman Daval Sato says B. I love how pedestrian is going against the tide. Everyone saying polyester, but we have that one vote for denim. So, tingnan natin, ano nga ba? Is it denim, polyester, or velvet? Mananalo kaya ng denim? Ang init-init nun. But baka naman, tingnan natin. Is it denim? Oh, it's polyester. Alright, sabi nga ni pedestrian, para maiba. Ganda naman din yun. Konting variety naman sa sagot, di ba? But the right answer is polyester. So congrats dun sa unang nakasagot, which was, it's K without Y. You got it right. It's polyester. Let's see the next one for our In the Quiz. Now, the International T-shirt Day is on blank. Is it June
Oh, wow. Hindi ko alam
21st,
to.
June 22nd, or June 23rd? All right, very interesting to. Yeah, is it today? No? June 22 ngayon, 'di ba? Is it today? Is it B, June 22? Is it yesterday, June 21, or is it tomorrow, June 23? All right, sabi ni pedestrian, it's A. Gets says A. Sabi ni Elizabeth Vistal, hi, hello po. Hi, Elizabeth. Thanks
Hello
for joining
po.
us here. Hello po. Thank you for joining us, Elizabeth. Ramon Deval Santos says A. Hestia says B. Miss Story Boy says A. All right. Thanks for following Plus Network. Okay, so is it yesterday, today, or tomorrow? Ano ang ating sagot for the International T-shirt Day? It's yesterday,
Hmm.
June 21. I mean, napakaganda naman ng timing natin. Nakakalain mo yung show natin just happens nalaglag pa on the day, nataon pa on the day, right after International T-shirt Day. I mean, was that you or someone from the, I wasn't sure, was that you, Kirk? Is how we didn't know that? Or
Ako
is
yun,
this
ako yun. I
common
didn't know
knowledge?
that. I
Yeah, ako din
didn't.
actually, didn't know that din. Mukhang magagaling din mag-Google ang mga ating bisita, ating mga guests dito. Thanks for that. Sino yung unang sumagot nakakuha ng tama? The answer is A, June 21st. It was pedestrian who got it first, who said A, it's June 21st. Alright, tingnan natin. Ay, sabi dito, it's K without Y. Wow, reason to celebrate and buy Worship Gen shirts. Actually, speaking of that, where do we find Worship Gen in the mall or online? How can we find more of Worship
Oh,
Gen pala?
well, we're still in the mall, but in the interest of safety, you can shop online. So we are in the major shopping platforms, and we are in our own e-commerce site. It's called worshipgen.com.
Oh wow! I mean, guys, if you guys want to express your faith and honor God, no, and worship Him and spread the word through your shirts, then alam nyo na, that's worshipgen.com, tama ba?
Yes, yes,
Yes. Okay. Or you could go to the major marketplaces as well. All
yes.
right. So, ano pa sabi dito ni Elizabeth? Good eve po from Jensan po mga sir. Oh, welcome
Oy,
Elizabeth from Jensan. Thanks for joining us. So how do I order daw? Sabi ni Ramon Deval Santos, you could just check it out doon sa add to, sabi nga dito ni It's K without add to cart. Add to cart na yan on worshipgen.com. So let's just go to worshipgen.com, and that way we can also worship God through our shirts. Interestingly, actually, I want to ask on behalf of Ramon Deval Santos. Oh, he's already asking it. Actually, do you deliver some Melbourne? Because he's joining us from
yeah,
Melbourne,
yeah,
Australia. Do
yeah.
you
We
ship
can.
overseas?
Yes, yes, and I think we have a distributor in New Zealand, so they
Oh
have their
wow.
own website. I could just send it later. I'll have to check the URL para sakto, and they can ship from New Zealand to Melbourne, and it's cheaper, faster.
Yes.
So I
Oh,
encourage
that's perfect.
Sir Santos to buy there.
Yeah, definitely. Lalo na there's only that travel bubble between ano daw, New
Yes,
Zealand and Australia. Sila lang pwedeng
yeah.
magtawiran. All right. So, please send to Raf daw. Send mo daw sa akin, sabi ni Ramon Duval Santos.
Ayun
Yeah,
naman
he's my
pala si Raf
target
na
there.
magbabayad. Okay na
Ah,
yun.
Bakit? Di ba? All right. So let's get back right into it. So that was actually
Mm,
our last question for in the quiz right now. So when we think of that, no, the business of shirts, no, clearly we see that na you really differentiate in the market in terms of that very positioning. It's about faith in a
mhm,
very secular world. But then the question is, one can easily say that's a very niche market, but how are you
mhm,
able to really maximize your space in the niche market? And having stood there, I mean, having been standing there for how many years, since 2013, right?
mhm.
My gosh, freshman pa ako noon in college in 2013. But yun, it's been standing the test of time.
Mhm.
How did you do that? How did you really establish your place in that niche market?
Well, the mindset really is to serve the community, serve the Christian community. And when I say serve, of course, we will serve them through the products that we sell. No? But more than that, it is also supporting the different activities of the different churches, the different groups, different individuals, and also to amplify whatever messages of these particular uh, stakeholders or members of the body of Christ. So parang you mentioned it, it's right that it's very focused, it's very niche, and our primary goal is to really take care of, interact, support, and offer ourselves to serve that particular community. And that's how we maintain the relationship. That's how we see it as an expression of the calling that we have and how the business can really serve its customers ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, I love that you mentioned it's really having that relationship. It's a very meaningful relationship with the
Mhm.
different Christian communities. And would I be
Mhm.
right on understanding, or I'm not sure if you mentioned that even the churches, right? The
Yes.
different groups, right? So I mean, I've seen that myself, having attending Victory Christian Fellowship. I mean, that's why I'm very
Hmm.
familiar with worship generation, right? So when we think of that, I mean, are you present? Are you partnering with all the different Christian churches, or when we go to church, how can we find more of worship generation? What's your strategy there?
Well, we try to be, how do I put it? We're happy to be, we're happy to be circumstantial. I mean, we don't want, we are very conscious that hindi kami yung bida dito. Yung bida
Yes.
dito is the gospel, is our
Mm,
faith. And we are just there to support. So we do whatever and however we can to help each one, each member, each group to promote and push that message. And that has been what we've been doing ever since. Because syempre, parang we don't want to overstep and
mm.
uh, over commercialize spirituality. I mean, that's a pitfall, di ba?
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
'Di ba? Kaya importante rin talaga to check our motivations at the end of the day to check our hearts as to why we're doing this. And of course, money making, profit maximization is part and parcel, if not an important part of it. But it's not the
Mm-hmm.
only thing. Parang serve the community, serve the market, serve your customers, and we have seen that the profits and the sales will follow.
Wow. I mean, I love what you mentioned about hindi kayo yung bida dun sa picture na yan, ano? I mean,
Mhm.
from a marketing standpoint, that pretty much goes against what's typically taught in marketing, right? But in a very practical sense, how do you operationalize that to make sure na hindi kayo bida? And you mentioned we have to check our motivations. What are the practical things that you guys do to make sure that that's kept in check? That you're it's not about the brand per se, but it's more on about the gospel. Talaga. It's about sharing God's word. It's about honoring God and really team Jesus, right? How do you keep what are the practical ways that you've been doing that to keep that in check?
Well, let's say, for instance, there's a church event. We do not demand
Mhm.
that worship gen be the name worship generation be plastered all over.
Oh,
Diba?
wow.
We're just happy
Uh,
that they wear the shirt because ultimately people will see and know or be curious kung saan galing yung shirts na yun. I mean, that's as crude as I can put it. That's why we don't demand our names to be in all the flyers, our logo in all the billboards, in all the whatever. Parang so long as our shirts are used, we're happy.
Wow, I mean, that goes everything, the very practical things we do for marketing. And that blows my mind. But at the same time, I love the brilliance of that because that's, in its truest sense, organic promotion.
Mhm.
And in a way, it's also organic spreading of the word. I love that. I mean, that's really powerful. And going back to that, no, just to take a step back also to that one thing you mentioned, that it definitely being profitable is important so that you can be sustainable as a business, but
Yeah.
it's not the main thing, right? How do you find that balance? No? I mean, and you mentioned then if you commercialize it too much, it becomes a pitfall. And in
Mhm.
business, that's definitely. I mean, in a business sense, we could really find ourselves gravitating to, okay, we gotta be profitable, we gotta be sustainable. It's easily justifiable, but how do you balance that?
Well, of course, profitability is still a goal. No? It's a practical measure of the excellence that you do as a business. And excellence
Mm-mm.
is a virtue that is expected of us as Christians. So, walang conflict doon. I guess, how do we balance it? Um, Especially now, no, in times that when in moments and times when it's so tough, like the COVID pandemic. How it is operationalized is just by reminding ourselves na sino ba yung source ng lahat ng ito? Or para saan ba ito? Parang we
Mm.
could draw up all the marketing plans, all the strategies, all the dressing up of the stores, all the flash deals and the vouchering, etc., etc. But we could not tinker in the hearts and minds of our customers to make them buy. Parang it's
Mm.
ultimately, I mean, di ba, parang I know that for for someone who's not so familiar with this, parang it sounds so foreign and parang paano yun? Pero it grounds us in the sense that okay, we do our best and we control what we can control and the result is not up to us. Bahala na si Lord doon.
Yeah, I mean,
So
yeah.
nababalanse nun eh. When it's doing so well, it doesn't go to your head because you know that it's a gift.
Oh, wow,
If
that is
it's not
powerful.
doing well, if it's dry season, yes, you get alarmed and you get, alam mo yun, jittery. But you don't lose your mind over it because you know that God will come through and pull you from that situation or bless you through it, not necessarily out of it. So having that layer of spirituality, I mean, grounds you, keeps your mind well, hopefully well enough to think of other strategies to keep the business afloat.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. I love that. You really hit some very very powerful points right there. Just earlier on, you mentioned also that profitability is really just a metric. I mean, we got to ground ourselves in that concept. It's just a metric, and it's not. It shouldn't be the end all be all because we have a higher purpose to why we start the business, right? But I really love that point we mentioned that it it's really up to God in the first place. It's a gift from God, right? I love how you talked about it's really giving us a clear picture of stewardship and
Mm-hmm.
trusting in God, right? And personally, I'd say that's the biggest lesson of 2020 for all of us, no matter where we are. It's really about trusting God. And how did that? How did you experience that since 2020 until today? And how are you able to foster that same concept, no? Yung ganong paninindigan that we gotta trust God, no matter how things are going crazy and there's so much mayhem left and right with this whole pandemic, right? But really grounding ourselves to trust God. How did you go through that? I love what you mentioned. God will pull us through, not necessarily out, but through. How was that for you and your team at Worship Generation?
Well, ako parang, I just look at God's track record in my life. And I remind our people, to look at God's track record in their lives. I mean, if you ask me when I was still in college, if I saw myself doing what I'm doing and being where I am, definitely it's a no because I had other goals and other plans. And when we talk to our people, when my business partner and I talk to our people, we gather the same sentiments that God has blessed us in ways that we did not expect. So parang when we doubt God, just look at God's track record. The
Yeah.
second thing is on a more personal level, parang I read this somewhere. I think it's from Tim Keller. Um,
Mm.
the God who knows us to the depths loves us to the heights. Parang no one, parang sobrang kilala tayo ni Lord, everything about us, all our flaws, insecurities, selfishness, etc., etc. Yet at the same time, He loves us. In spite of those things, He loves us. So parang ano pa bang parang dun ka huhugot ng all will be well eh. Because the most powerful person in the universe looks after you and cares for you.
I mean,
Tsaka
that
sige,
is true. Yeah.
let me make this more practical. Hindi mo naman kayang hindi mo naman kayang problemahin at kontrolin lahat eh. Kaya nga
Yes.
kaya nga tayo na kaya nga tayo na stress, 'di ba? Kaya nga tayo hindi makatulog, kaya nga tayo anxious, kaya nga tayo may mga mental health
Mm-mm.
challenges. So those are clues that we could not handle everything. So parang, okay, pag di mo na handle, hindi mo na kaya, turn over na. And in
Oo.
the moments that you turn over are actually moments of breakthrough because you allow God to work.
That is so true. I mean, ako mismo, I've experienced that myself in my own life in running my own business. Then, I mean, there's so much freedom in in the very act of surrendering and letting go and really saying, Lord, hindi ko na kaya. Ikaw na. I mean, you're God. Malaki ka, Lord. God
Tsaka
is way bigger than
Ralph,
us, di ba?
I
Uh,
read I listened to a podcast last year. This is
yeah.
making it more practical. Na parang
Mm-mm.
when we are stressed and anxious, our minds operate in such a way that it reduces our options to two things lang. Nagiging binary lang yung
Yeah.
options natin pag stressed tayo. It's either
Yes.
super good or super bad.
Yeah.
This mimics
Oo.
the this mimics the fight or flight
Fight or flight.
response natin,
Yes. Oo.
di ba? Pero sa dalas na stress tayo, parang nagiging sistema na natin na dalawa lang lagi yung choices. Either super okay or hindi super okay. Pero
Yeah.
in so doing, what we fail to realize is hindi lang sarili natin yung nililimit natin.
Mm-mm.
Pero nililimit din natin si God as if God only has two options. To
Yeah.
solve it 100% or to totally abandon us and wala na. Eh parang God cannot be boxed, di ba? He could
Yes,
not
that
be
is true.
contained. So parang let us open our lives. I have learned to open my own life and my own situation to the other more creative ways that God would choose to intervene. So
Mm-mm.
kunwari, may problema yung isang store. Yung unang instinct mo dun, hala, isasara ko na, lugi na. Pero
Mm-mm.
pwede na hibernate muna, meaning kausapin mo yung mall na, o sige, pwede ba mag-store hibernation ako for 3 months? Or pwede bang may reduced work hours muna ako? Reduced store hours
Mm-mm.
muna ako? Or pwede bang select days of the week lang ako magbubukas? So it need not be the most bleak of all situations. There are other intermediate solutions, more creative, that you can do, that we have done, because we have lowered the anxieties of our soul.
Yes. I mean, I love that. That's actually, that really speaks of what we read in the Bible then, that the Lord does not give us a spirit of timidity or fear, right? But
Mm-hmm.
more of confidence, of power, because He is God. I mean, He is bigger than us and definitely much, much bigger than any problems that we might have. I mean, He spoke the universe into existence. Ito pa kaya,
Mm-hmm.
kaya niya, 'di ba? And I love how you pointed that out na anxiety is mimicking yung ano natin, yung fight or flight instinct natin. I actually also not sure if it was a podcast or maybe I think I saw it on Netflix. Na it really is mimicking that survival instinct na except
Mm-hmm.
na we replace the predator, diba? We replace the lion with deadlines, right? With deadlines,
Mm-hmm.
pressures, or sometimes even people that might be causing us anxiety. But the physical manifestations of anxiety is pretty much the same. No fight or flight instinct of animals in the face of a predator. But then again, ito nga, ang anxiety is coming from more often than not unreal things, diba? That now we tend to overthink, but you gotta remember that God is so much bigger than any of this, and we can really trust Him, right? I mean, I really love that. That's very powerful, and we gotta remember that every day, no matter what the challenges are, no matter where we may be, we're running business or running our own careers
Mm-hmm.
as an employee or even as students. I love that. And in terms of that, on a day-to-day basis, what are the practical things that you do and that you could share with our mga kabiskarte dito in terms of how can we ground ourselves on that and remind ourselves to trust God no matter what?
Ako first and foremost is to really protect our individual walk and time with God. I mean, that has to be non-negotiable.
Mm-mm.
Reading the Word, listening to podcasts, just having that space where we can talk to ourselves, ask ourselves, kamusta tayo, and then talk to God about our own situations. Personally, I do that in my runs, pag nagbabike ako. It's hard at home because Netflix and YouTube and basketball and K-drama are all in the way of things. But however you do it, wherever you can do it, just carve out the time. Um, the second would be to realize that faith is a journey that is meant to be done for and with people. Hindi pwedeng i-isolate yung sarili. This is
Mm-mm.
true for business as it is true for faith. I mean, you cannot isolate yourself in the context of the business because you will lose your touch for the market.
Yes.
Unfortunately, a business owner now, it's so tiring because there are so many social media platforms. There are
That's true.
so many meeting platforms. So you have to keep up because that's what the market and how the market is like now.
Mm-mm.
Same with faith. I mean, you grow in faith in the context of a community.
Mm-mm.
It's really great to have a spiritual family where you can talk about your struggles, you can talk about your victories, and you can talk about just things that ought to be expressed.
Yeah.
And number three, to take care of the relationships that matter the most, family
Mm-mm.
and friends. If COVID has taught us anything, it is that relationships are the most important. Money, we will end up spending it to buy COVID medicines. But I mean, when we hear of stories of people really going almost crazy in the hospital because they have no one there to talk to, di ba?
Mm-mm.
So yun, number one, your time with God. Number two, be in the context of a community. And number three, take care of the relationships. And of course, let me add, no, have that mindset ng learning pa din. Learn about the thing that you're doing, develop new skills, uh, and train your mind and yourself na you always have something to learn. That keeps you on guard against, alam mo yun, parang complacency, against, oh, ang galing-galing ko na, which are the
Mm-mm.
pitfall of your own personal downfall and the business's downfall.
I mean that's definitely hubris, and if you think you're already at the top of your game, you're the best in it. But when you get to have that humility to admit to yourself that there's still room to improve, actually allows
Mhm.
growth, right? And I really love that one point that you mentioned. It's about building relationships. I mean, I love that because kami
Mhm.
in our company in Retail Gate, we also say that we don't just build technologies, we build relationships, right? And every business transaction starts with building meaningful relationships, no? And in
Mhm.
your experience in running worship generation, of course, you deal with different different people from different walks of life, right? Be it your
Mm-hmm.
employees, your managers, your suppliers, and of course your customers. Even on a daily basis, coming in and out of the store, different people, different walks of life, right? How do you deal with that, especially typically when we think of retail, right? I mean, you have to deal with different temperaments. Di mo alam, baka mamaya bad trip yung pumasok na customer, right? Di ba? Or there's always gonna be that, you'll never know when you'll be challenged, no, in terms of your values, your faith, expressing your Christianity when it comes to dealing with relationships. How do you guys manage that at Worship Generation?
Well, I mean, I will be the first to admit that there are days when you just lose it. I mean,
we're only human. I mean, that's normal.
actually, kung hindi mo man i-express sa loob-loob mo, parang, nako.
Yeah.
And I'll be the first to admit that it's hard
Mm-mm.
because those are indeed EGR moments, as we call it, extra grace required.
Yes. Oo.
Pero I guess ano lang, I go back to it's all about service, serving the community. It's all about
Mm-mm.
catering to the most important aspect of the business, which is people. And in the
Yes.
context of how we relate it to our Christianity, it's our
Mm.
form of worship, our response to God in the face of our customers, our response to God in as to how we do our work. Because we're commanded naman, whether you eat or drink, do it all for the glory of God. And
Yes.
it's a hard thing to do. And we fail
Yes.
because alam mo, yung tao lang. Pero
Definitely.
in the context of a community, we can process that together. We can talk about it and open up. This is a difficult thing for me, and we can together talk and improve.
I mean, I love that. I mean, definitely, it's definitely not easy to really live that day by day. We can easily trip. Magkamali tayo every now and then. We slip every now and then. But it's really only by the grace of God that we're able to consistently do that. And it really starts with seeking first God's kingdom, and all else,
Mm-hmm.
everything else will be added onto us, right? So as we wrap up, Kirk, no, I mean, I love this session. I mean, this is a very, very powerful episode for In The Biz na not only did we talk about business, but it was pretty much a discipleship, devotion na rin na
Actually,
discussion, no? Diba? I mean, I love how
pwede
we
na
share
silang
the
hindi
same.
mag-church. Joke lang.
Wag naman, di ba? But I mean, nakakabusog. It's only Tuesday, and yet we're also spiritually full because of this episode, right? But what would be your final thoughts, no, that you'd love to leave with our mga kabiskarte in terms of for those that want to start their own business or are already running their own business, or even if not necessarily in the context of business, but just simply that facing life day by day and facing the typical challenges of human life every day, what would you say to all our kabiskate dito?
Ako that everything is a gift. Everything is grace. Uh,
Mm-mm.
the desire to start your own business is a gift. And the best way to
Yes.
honor that gift is to actually do it and do it well. If you have your own business already, that business is an amazing gift and
That's true.
do it excellently. If your business is challenged, then that challenge is also a gift to discover things that you're made of that you wouldn't have expected. Unfortunately, if your business failed, we are sad about it and alam mo yun, no one likes a business folding.
Mm.
But in the context of God's love and God's providence, it is also grace and it is also a gift because God is closing a door and opening something. We trust that He's opening something. I guess what I'm saying is walang tapon kay Lord.
Yes.
Walang
Mm-mm. That's
walang
true.
sayang. In the context of our economy, of normal economy, may losses and may gains. Pero in the
Mm-mm.
context of God's economy, walang tapon, walang sayang. Because God works all things together for good
Yes.
for those who love Him and are called according to His purpose.
Yeah, I was about to say that exactly. Romans 8:28, that He makes
Yeah.
all things work together for our good, and that's really how faithful God is. And I love that. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing God's word through and through for an hour with us here on In the Biz. And that, I would say, is a very very powerful bizcarte, because it all goes back to the one who gave us our everything that we can do, our capability, our strength, our resources, and our skills that allow us to be in the biz, right? So thank you so much. I mean, your life is such a blessing. Your business is such a blessing. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Our visita, none other than Kirk Damasco, owner and founder and owner of Worship Generation. Thank you so much, Kirk. God
Thank
bless
you,
you, man.
thank you.
Thank you so
God
much.
bless you, everybody.
All right. So thank you so much again, Kirk. I mean, guys, thank you again for joining us for another episode on this 10th episode. I hope, just like me, I hope kayo din, nabusog kayo, na-bless kayo with that. A very, very inspiring and very faith-filled expression of Kirk's Bizcarte story in building and running and sustaining yung worship generation. So if you guys want to check out more about worship generation, just look them up. That's worshipgen.com, or you can check them out yung sa mga in the leading marketplaces out there. Of course, they're also on Facebook and all your social media pages. You could check them out. That's Worship Generation, so that you could really, let's all together make worship a lifestyle, right? So thank you again for joining us here on In the Biz, where we really talk about yung mga bizcarte stories of our successful business owners and business leaders, just like Kirk Damasco. All right. So this is, of course, just one of our many shows on Plus Network. We, as I mentioned early on when we started, now we're back to our original schedule. That's Tuesday 8 to 9 p.m. for In the Biz. So we've had a little bit of mix na rin with our schedule. So Tuesday, we start off the week on Tuesdays with In the Biz 8 to 9 p.m. and then followed by tomorrow Wednesday. We also have Pick a Side with Chuck Araneta and Nael Banal. So that's all about debate on sports. Everything you want to know about sports, gonna be updated about sports, and really what side are you on? You can really pick a side. That's Tuesdays 8 to 9 p.m. And of course Thursdays 8 to 10 p.m. naman, Seaworthy with Coach JC Libiran, and of course brother Randel, who was also joining us. I'm not sure if he's still here, but if you're still here with us, brother Randel, thank you for joining us. So catch him on Thursdays 8 to 10 p.m. for Seaworthy. And of course, you might have seen also, in as we opened the show earlier, we have a new show on Plus Network here on Kumu. That's Perk Inspired. So just of course, for those who are already familiar with them, catch the Perkins twins. That's Fridays 8 to 9 p.m. So get inspired with the different stories and the trends, and hear more from the Perkins twins. So that's Fridays 8 to 9 p.m. For Perk Inspired. That's Fridays on Plus Network here on Kumu. So for us on In the Biz, we'll see you again next week. That's Tuesdays 8 to 9 p.m. Again, so thank you so much for joining us for In the Biz, where we talk about yung mga Bizcarte stories and your Bizcarte story to be a successful business owner, business leader, and entrepreneur. And in doing so, of course, let's honor God in our business, right? So thank you so much for joining us again. I'm Raphael Layosa, founder and CEO of Retail Gate Technologies. You could follow me here on Kumu at Raphael Layosa, and catch us again next week, Tuesday. That's every week now, Tuesdays, 8 to 9 p.m. for In the Biz here on Plus Network on Kumu, on the Plus Network channel here on Kumu. So together, let's be more and be plus on Kumu. See you then.